Hi, Kaden. How are you doing today? Welcome to my live, guys. Everybody, welcome in. We are doing the neon names once again. Let's go, guys. Kaden is here. Here you go, Kaden. You are the first one. Who's going to be next, guys? Everybody, welcome to my live. Get your neon names done, guys. Welcome in, everybody. Who's next, everybody? Welcome to my live. Hit that subscribe button, guys. Like the live and get your names done. Who's going to be next? Everybody, welcome to my live. Get your names done, everybody. We are doing the neon names. Welcome to my live, guys. Hi, Shannon. All right, let's go for Shannon in the chat. There you go, Shannon. Thank you so much for subscribing. Who do we have next, guys? Everybody, welcome in. Get your names done, guys. Welcome in, everybody. Who do we have next, guys? Then we have is Cade. Here you go for Cade. Next we have is Hyunjin. Here you go. Thank you for subscribing, everybody. Please hit that like button, guys. Then we've got is Hala. Next subscriber we've got is Ameya in the chat. Here you go, Ameya. And then the next subscriber that I have is Jack in the chat. Thank you, Jack. And then next we've got is Valeria. Thank you, Valeria. Everybody hit the like button, guys. Don't forget to like the live, okay? Valentina, how are you? Thank you so much, Valentina. Next we have is Oscar. How are you, Oscar? Here you go. Thank you so much for subscribing. And then my next subscriber is Anna in the chat. Thank you, Anna. And then subscriber is, just give me a second, guys. You got a Cinnamon in the chat. Thank you, Cinnamon. All right, who do we have next, guys? Welcome to my live. Izzy in the chat. Thank you, Izzy. And then next we have is Natalie. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Have a great day, Natalie. And then the next subscriber that I have is Paula in the chat. How are you, Paula? And then the next subscriber we've got is Sabe. How are you, Sabe? And then the next subscriber we've got is Gia in the chat. Thank you, Gia. And then we have is Colin. How are you, Colin? Who is next, guys? Everybody, Zach in the chat. Thank you, Zach. And then the next subscriber is Kalane. Thank you so much for subscribing. And then the next subscriber is Malaysia. Thank you for subscribing. And then we have is Afnan. Thank you for subscribing. And the next subscriber that we have is Wyatt. Thank you. And then the next subscriber that we have is Malia. Thank you, Malia. And then my next subscriber is Alizon. Welcome back. And then my next subscriber is Alex. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is Selen. Thank you for liking. And then my next subscriber is Johnny in the chat. Thank you, Johnny. And then my next subscriber is Hyun Jen in the chat. Thank you for liking my live. Here you go. Next subscriber we've got is Chris in the chat. Here you go, Chris. And then we have is Laurel in the chat. Thank you, Laurel. And then we have is Archie in the chat. Thank you, Archie. And then my next subscriber is Tanley. Welcome back. And then my next subscriber is Kylie. How are you? And then my next subscriber is Sid in the chat. Thank you so much for liking. And then we've got Kinsley. Hi Kinsley, how are you doing today? Then we have is Freddie in the chat. Thank you, Freddie. And then we have is Selin in the chat. How are you, Selin? And then we have is May. Thank you for subscribing. And then we have the next subscriber is Harley. And then the next subscriber is Edric. And then the next subscriber is Viola. And then the next subscriber is Nadi. Thank you for liking. And then the next subscriber is Emma. And then the next subscriber is Cameron. All right, Henry in the chat. And then the next subscriber is Jack in the chat. Thank you, Jack. And then the next subscriber in the chat is Mandira. Thank you. Here you go, Mandira. And then we have is Wesley. Thank you. And then the next subscriber is in the chat is Salan. Here you go, Salan. And then we have is Moy in the chat. Thank you, Moy. And then the next subscriber we have is Jack in the chat. Thank you, Jack. And then we have is May and Kylie if you want to. And then we have is Albie in the chat. Thank you, Albie. And then my next subscriber is Sarah. And then my next subscriber is Ludano. And then my next subscriber is Liam. And then my next subscriber in the chat is Ajune. Thank you, Ajune. And then my next subscriber is Seth. Thank you. And then we have is Rohan. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is May in the chat. Thank you for liking. And then we have is Malikai. All right, here you go, Malikai. And then in my next subscriber in the chat is Jace. Thank you, Jace, for subscribing. And then we have is Sani. Thank you for liking. And then the next subscriber in the chat is Jace. And then we have is Stephanie. How are you, Stephanie? Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And then the next subscriber is Dina in the chat. And then we have is Charissa. Here you go, Charissa. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Zubi. Thank you. And the next subscriber we've got is Janet. Thank you, Janet. And then the next subscriber we have is Carly. Thank you so much, Carly, for subscribing. And then we have is Sam. Thank you, Sam. And then the next subscriber we have is Kim in the chat. How are you, Kim? And the next subscriber is Jacelyn. Thank you for subscribing and liking, Jacelyn. Then we have is Yusuf in the chat. Thank you, Yusuf. And then we have is Kyrie. Thank you for liking. And then the next subscriber is Safu1. Thank you, Safu1. Here you go. Next subscriber we've got is Kamai in the chat. Here you go, Kamai. And then the next subscriber is Levy in the chat. Thank you, Levy. And then we have is Kaya in the chat. Here you go, Kaya. And then we have is Angel in the chat. Let's get to the next page, everybody. Get your names done, everybody. All right, let's begin. Then we have is the next subscriber that we have is Ludano in the chat. Thank you, Ludano. And then the next subscriber that we have is Cameron. Thank you so much, Cameron, for subscribing. And then we have next is Wakas in the chat. Thank you, Wakas. And then the next subscriber that we have is Cambry. How are you, Cambry? And then the next subscriber is Haley in the chat. Thank you, Haley. And then the next subscriber is Philip in the chat. Thank you, Philip. And then the next subscriber is April. Thank you for liking. And then the next subscriber is Wendy. Thank you. And then the next subscriber that we have is Vienna. Thank you, Vienna. And then my next subscriber is Aman. Thank you, Aman. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Annabelle. How are you, Annabelle? And then the next subscriber that we have is Junaid in the chat. Here you go, Junaid. And then the next subscriber we've got is Cole in the chat. Thank you, Cole. And then we have is Trevor. Thank you for subscribing. And then we have is Tori. Thank you for liking, Tori. Have an amazing day. Then we've got is Kaylani. Here you go, Kaylani. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Sophia in the chat. Thank you, Sophia. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Ethan in the chat. Thank you, Ethan. And then we've got is Nicola in the chat. Thank you, Nicola. And then we have is Cutie in the chat. Thank you, Cutie. And then we have is Logan in the chat. Thank you. Let's get to the next line, everybody. Next we've got is Anita in the chat. Thank you for liking, Anita. Thank you. And then we have is Ezra. Welcome back, Ezra. And then the next subscriber we've got is Kayeli. Thank you. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Steffi. Thank you, Steffi. And then the next subscriber that we got is Tabita. Thank you. And then the next subscriber that we have is Ka. Thank you for liking. And then the next subscriber we've got is Nezuko. Here you go, Nezuko. All right, next subscriber that we've got is Samia. Thank you for subscribing to me, Samia. And then the next subscriber we've got is Owen. Thank you so much for liking. And then the next subscriber we've got Haika. Thank you so much for liking. And then we have is Mia in the chat. Thank you for liking, Mia. And then the next subscriber in the chat is Sasha. Thank you so much for liking. And then the next subscriber we've got is Abigail. Thank you so much. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Adele. Thank you, Adele. Here you go. And then we've got is Mario. Thank you. And then the next subscriber is Valentina. Thank you, Valentina. Have a great day. And then the next subscriber is Claire. Thank you for liking, Claire. And then we have is Emily. Thank you so much for liking. And then the next subscriber is Abdul. And then the next subscriber is Manish. And then my next subscriber is Myla. Thank you so much for liking. And then my next subscriber is Jacob. Thank you so much. And then my next subscriber is Octavia. Thank you, Octavia. And then my next subscriber is Manis. Thank you, Manis, for liking and subscribing. Thank you. And then we have is AJ. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Amaya, thank you for liking. And then my next subscriber in the chat is Emma. Thank you, Emma. And then my next subscriber in the chat is Isla. Thank you, Isla. And then my next subscriber is going to be Silvana. Thank you so much for liking. And then my next subscriber is Nadia. Thank you for liking, Nadia. And then the next subscriber is Ellie. Thank you for liking. And then my next subscriber is Willow. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is Paydon. Thank you, Paydon, for liking. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is Lily. Thank you so much. And then the next subscriber is Avion. And then the next subscriber is Alex. And then the next subscriber is Ileana. Thank you for liking. Thank you. All right. And then the next subscriber is Billa in the chat. Thank you. And then the next subscriber we've got is Sophie. Let's get to the next page, everybody. All right. Then we have the next subscriber to be is Orla. Thank you so much, Orla. Here you go. And then my next subscriber is George in the chat. Thank you, George. And then my next subscriber is Jack. Thank you. Thank you for liking. And then we have is a fan bag. Thank you, a fan bag. Thank you so much. All right. Who do we have next, guys? Then we have is Janan, who liked and subscribed. Thank you, Janan. And then my next subscriber in the chat is who's that? Rocky. Thank you, Rocky. And then my next subscriber in the chat is Samuel in the chat. Thank you, Samuel, for subscribing. And then my next subscriber is Daisy. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you so much for liking. All right, and then my next subscriber is Dylan in the chat. Thank you. And then we have is Daniel. Thank you so much, Daniel, for liking and subscribing. And then the next subscriber is Leticia. Thank you, Leticia. Have a nice day. And then we have is Barira. Thank you so much, Barira. Have a great day. And then my next subscriber is Lily. Thank you. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Then we got is Sarah. Thank you so much. And then my next subscriber is Serena. Thank you, Serena. All right, next subscriber that I have is Emmy in the chat. Thank you, Emmy. And then my next subscriber is Iliad. Thank you, Iliad. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is Olivia. Thank you, Olivia. And then my next subscriber is Yasa. Thank you. Thank you so much for liking. And then we have is Keshia in the chat. Is that Keshia? Yeah, it is. All right, let's get to the next line, everybody. Then we have is Jamie in the chat. How are you, Jamie? So glad to see you in here. Have a nice day. And then we've got is Vive. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. All right, and then my next subscriber is Limar in the chat. Thank you, Limar. And then we have is Sophia in the chat. Thank you. And then we have is Victoria in the chat. Thank you so much. And then the next subscriber that I have is Angel. Thank you. Thank you for liking, Angel. Thank you. And then we have is Juliana. Thank you, Juliana, for those hearts again. Here you go. Have a great day. And then we've got is Hadim. Thank you so much for liking. And then my next subscriber that we have is Marva. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is, who is that? Ilhame. Thank you, Ilhame. Here you go. Thank you for liking. Then we've got Amanda in the chat. Thank you, Amanda. Have a nice day. And then next subscriber that we've got is Reagan in the chat. Thank you, Reagan. And then we have is Anthony in the chat. Thank you, Anthony, for liking. And then the next subscriber we've got is Malia in the chat. Thank you, Malia. And then we have is Habo in the chat. Thank you so much for double tapping for me. Then we've got Ziva in the chat. Here you go, Ziva. And then we've got is Leo in the chat. And then the next subscriber that I have is Grayson. Thank you, Grayson. Have a nice day, Grayson. Let's get to the next line, everybody. Then we've got is Emery. Thank you for liking, Emery. Have a great day, Emery. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Habiba. Thank you. Welcome back, Habiba. Thank you. And then the next subscriber that we have is Oliver in the chat. Thank you, Oliver. And then the next subscriber we've got is Leticia. Thank you for liking. And then my next subscriber, guys, it is Darren in the chat. Thank you so much, Darren. Then we have is Jessica. Thank you for liking, Jessica. Have a great day. And then my next subscriber is Gabriel in the chat. Thank you, Gabriel. All right, next subscriber that we have is Jamie in the chat. Thank you, Jamie. And then my next subscriber is Seb in the chat. Thank you, Seb. And then we have is Harry in the chat. Thank you so much for liking, Harry. And then we have is Mia in the chat. Thank you, Mia, for subscribing. And then my next subscriber is Martha. Thank you so much. Here you go, Martha. And then the next subscriber that we have is Jalia. Thank you, Jalia, for liking and subscribing. Have an amazing day. And then we've got is Hasib. Thank you so much, Juliana, for saying those words. I love you all too. Thank you so much. Then we've got Kayla in the chat. Here you go, Kayla. Have an amazing day. And then we've got is Trevor. Thank you, Trevor, for liking and subscribing. And then we've got is Marista. Thank you. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Let's get to the next page, everybody. All right. Okay, let's begin, guys. Everybody, welcome to my live, guys. And then we've got the next subscriber is Tammy in the chat. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing to me. And then we have is, who is that? Molly in the chat. Thank you, Molly, for subscribing. And then next name that we have is Bill, who subscribed. Thank you. And then my next subscriber is Jaden. Thank you so much, Jaden. Here you go. All right, who do we have next, guys? Then we've got is Eve in the chat. How are you, Eve? And next subscriber we've got is Kyla. Thank you. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Here you go. All right, next subscriber that we've got is Lila in the chat. Thank you, Lila. All right, just give me a second, guys. I just need to see if my internet's working properly or not. All right, let's go, guys. Lila in the chat. All right, who do we have next? Thank you so much, Lila, for liking and subscribing to me. Then we've got is Yuka in the chat. Thank you, Yuka. And the next subscriber that we have is Jaden in the chat. Thank you so much for liking, Jaden. And the next subscriber we've got is, oh my God, the comments are coming so quickly, guys. Mia, thank you so much for liking, subscribing. Have a nice day. Then we've got Ivana in the chat. Thank you, Ivana. And then the next subscriber that I have is Emily. Thank you, Emily, for liking my live. Thank you. Then we've got Jelena. How are you, dear Jelena? Have a great day. And the next subscriber that we have is, guys, Leticia. How are you, Leticia? And then we've got is Alessia. How are you, Alessia? Have a great day. Everybody, hit the like button, guys. Let's go, guys. Then we've got Ayuf in the chat. Thank you, Ayuf. Have a great day. Then we've got is Hope in the chat. Thank you, Hope. And then we have is Archie. All right, let's go, guys. Everybody, come on, guys. Let's, oh my God, you guys, can you guys see now? All right, let's go, guys. Violet in the chat. How are you, Violet? Have a great day. Thank you so much for liking. Then we've got is Sean in the chat. Thank you, Sean. And then my next subscriber is Mila in the chat. Thank you, Mila. And then my next subscriber is Betsy in the chat. Thank you for double tapping for me, Betsy. And then we've got is Avery. Thank you. And then we have is in the chat Kai. Thank you so much for liking my live. And then we have is Abia in the chat. How are you, Abia? And the next subscriber that we've got is Livania. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you. And then we have is Tammy. Thank you so much, Tammy. Have an amazing day. And the next subscriber that we have is Isabel. Thank you for liking. And then the next subscriber that we have is Neil in the chat. Thank you for liking, Neil. And then we got is Morgan in the chat. How are you, Morgan? Here you go. Then we have is Summer in the chat. How are you, Summer? Thank you so much for subscribing. And then we've got is Mari in the chat. Thank you, Mari. Have a nice day. And the next subscriber we've got is Lola in the chat. And then we have is Fran. Thank you so much for liking, Fran. And then we've got is April in the chat. How are you, April? Have a nice day. And then we have Xavier in the chat. Thank you, Xavier. And the next subscriber that we have is Emily. Thank you so much, Emily, for liking and subscribing. Here you go. And the next subscriber that we have is Rowena in the chat. Thank you, Rowena, for liking and subscribing to me. Have a nice day. And then we have is Ellie in the chat. Thank you for subscribing to me, Ellie. And then we've got Coster in the chat. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And then we've got Stella in the chat. Thank you, Stella, for liking and subscribing. And then we have is Lucas. Thank you for subscribing. And the next subscriber is Laiba in the chat. Thank you, Laiba. And then we have is Angele. Thank you so much, Angele. And then the next subscriber we've got is Luca in the chat. Thank you, Luca, for liking and subscribing. Then we have is, who is that? Cheonchen. Thank you. I've heard this name somewhere. Where have I heard this name? Not sure about that. Then we've got is Justin in the chat. Thank you, Justin, for subscribing and liking. Then we've got is, who is that? Nicholas. Thank you, Nicholas, for liking and subscribing. And then the next subscriber is Jordan in the chat. Thank you, Jordan, for subscribing and liking. Then we've got is, all right, Omar in the chat. Thank you, Omar, for subscribing and liking. And then we have is Evans. Thank you, Evans. Have a great day. All right, next subscriber that we have is Gracie in the chat. Thank you, Gracie. Let's get to the next page, everybody. All right, let's go, guys. Then we have is Amy in the chat. How are you, Amy? Thank you so much for liking and subscribing to me. And then we have is Jacob in the chat. Thank you, Jacob. And the next subscriber that we have is Seelan. How are you, Seelan? Here you go. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Then we've got is Major in the chat. How are you, Major? Thank you for liking. Then we've got Maya in the chat. Let's go, everybody. Maya, welcome to my live. Next, we've got Jackson. Thank you, Jackson, for liking and subscribing. All right, who else has liked and subscribed? I see Azan. Thank you. And then the next subscriber is Adana in the chat. Have a nice day, Adana. And then the next subscriber we've got is Aiden in the chat. Thank you, Aiden. And my next subscriber is Daisy in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Sophia in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Alma. Thank you so much for liking. And then my next subscriber is Adina. I've done Adana here. And then we've got Kara. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then we have is, who is that? Rania in the chat. Thank you, Rania, for liking and subscribing to me. Have a nice day. And then we have is Penny in the chat. How are you, Penny? And then we have is Ananya. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. Have a nice day. And then we have is Esme in the chat. Thank you, Esme, for subscribing. Then we've got Nako. Thank you for liking, Nako. And then we have is Royal in the chat. Here you go. And then the next line, everybody. Next subscriber we've got is Isla in the chat. And then we have is Malak in the chat. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you. And then the next subscriber we have is Aaron in the chat. Here you go, Aaron. Then we have is Daria in the chat. How are you, Daria? And then the next subscriber that we have is Ludano. Thank you for liking. And then we have is, who is that? Felix. All right. Hey, go Felix. Have a great day. And then the next subscriber we've got is Kaletsko. Is that the name? I can't really see it now, but I think it is correct. Here you go. Have a nice day. And then we have is Oscar. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And then the next name that we have is Marley. And then the next subscriber that we have is Zena. And then the next subscriber that we have is Jessica. Thank you so much for liking. And then the next subscriber that we have is Molly in the chat. Thank you, Molly. And then the next subscriber that we have is Savannah. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And then my next subscriber is Anais. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing to my channel. Who else has liked, guys? I see Rem who has liked. Thank you, Rem. Have a nice day. And then we've got Liliana. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And then my next subscriber is Haven. Here you go. And then my next subscriber is Scarlett in the chat. Thank you, Scarlett. Have a nice day. And then the next subscriber we've got is Jack in the chat. Thank you, Jack. And the next subscriber we have is Lido in the chat. Thank you for subscribing. And then we have is Layla who liked and subscribed. Thank you, Layla. And then the next subscriber that we have is Alayla. Thank you. And then the next subscriber that I have is DJ Ray. Thank you so much for subscribing. And then we have is Adam. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And then we got the next subscriber to be Natalie. Thank you, Natalie. And then we have is Aiden in the chat. Thank you, Aiden. Here you go. And then the next subscriber that we've got is Lucas in the chat. And then the next subscriber is Ruwa in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Afi in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Han in the chat. Thank you, Han. And then my next subscriber is Hanya in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Aisha in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Abe in the chat. And then my next subscriber is Shadow in the chat. All right, guys, now I would go for a break and I'll be back in like, I guess, 35 minutes. Take care of yourself and have an amazing day. See you guys.